We're looking at the starts and sits you need for week number 8. Let's start with the positive side of things with the starts, and we'll start with the start of the week. Tony Pollard's in a great spot. Sometimes you just got to take the layup when it presents itself to you, and Tony Pollard is the layup for this week. Taking over for Ezekiel Elliott without Elliott expected to play. Things could change as the week goes on, but it's a great opportunity for Tony Pollard. We've been waiting for this. We've been dreaming of this, and the dream matchup is on the table against the Bears. They've allowed 6 running backs on the season to score 12 or more PPR points. 5 of those have gone for 18 or more PPR points. And Pollard, when he's gotten the work, he's been successful. And oh my goodness, does he get in the work. You see where we like him this week. 4th for Sportsline, 7th for me and for Heath. Dave, you're the low guy this week.
And I told you earlier
and you
that
said
I was
he's going to be in your top 5.
I was fighting putting him in my top 5.
You're fighting putting him in your top 10.
In non-PPR, he's there. In full PPR, he's just not quite there. And I don't know if I'm going to change it or not. I might have to look at it a little bit more. I haven't spent as much time on him as I've spent on other players this week, but there's no doubt about it, he is a #1 fantasy running back.
Great opportunity for him. I would start him over Jonathan Taylor this week. In non-PPR, I'd start him over Christian McCaffrey this week. Love the setup for him. Taking on the Bears, just a great situation for those of you that drafted him and waited and waited and waited. Now you get a chance to start him with full confidence, as you see here, a #1 running back for this week. Other starts for me for week number 8. You got Jared Goff, and I think it's going to be expected shootout. Miles Sanders and Devontae Smith taking on the Steelers. Their defense not just doing the things you need to do for the Steelers, doing very good wonders for the Eagles should be Miles Sanders and Devontae Smith. Like the setup for Tyler Boyd, like the setup for Irv Smith as well. In terms of the Eagles, Miles Sanders, 2 of his last 3 games, 13 or more PPR points. The Steelers have been absolutely abysmal against the run. Every week, a running back does wonderful things against them, and Devontae Smith getting back on track because he's just off his bye week. So you're starting these guys, starting them with confidence. Love the setup for Tyler Boyd, 15 targets in his last 2 games after Zach Taylor said he should be more involved, and you've seen the production. It's been fantastic. Should be the case once again in a primetime spot against the Browns on Monday night. Let's talk about who's up next. I guess it would be Heath is up next. Your starts, Heath, for you for this week. Sorry, I'm a little flustered. There's a trade going on in the NFL. Your starts for this week, you got Daniel Jones, Raheem Mostert, Devin Singletary, and a pair of Broncos playing on Sunday morning against the Jaguars in London. So, Heath, let's start with Daniel Jones. A little bit different of opinion here about Daniel Jones. Dave, not as high on him as you and I are. Sell me on Daniel Jones. Tell our audience on Daniel Jones.
He's averaging 49 rushing yards per game. He's averaged 200 yards passing over the last 3 games. You put those 2 numbers together, you only need 1 touchdown to get to 19 fantasy points. 19 fantasy points this year makes you a top 12 quarterback. This is about 2 things. 1, lowering the bar for what it takes to be a starting quarterback. 1, acknowledging that Jones is getting more comfortable in Brian Daboll's offense, that they have unleashed him as a rusher, and he's facing the Seahawks defense that you've talked about all week long, giving up the most rushing production to quarterbacks, asterisk, if you count Taysom Hill.
I mean, he was under center where he was lined up at quarterback, and sometimes he's listed as quarterback. Dave, what's your concern about Daniel Jones?
You mentioned 19 points is the new bar. You can even make it 18 points. He's been under 18 points 4 of his last 6 games. He's been under 17 points 4 of his last 6 games. The upside is fun, and we saw it last week with the 30-point game, but that's not the norm for him. I think he's closer to under 20. There are a lot of other quarterbacks that I think have a better chance to come through for 17, 18, 19 points in that range.
Just to go back to our conversation on Tuesday, you would start P.J. Walker over Daniel Jones.
Already there.
All right, starting P.J. Walker over Daniel Jones. Let's talk about your starts, Dave. P.J. Walker not among them. The guys that you're looking at for, I'm sorry, wait, I want to get the Broncos. I jumped the gun a little bit. Dulcich and Sutton this week. Well, what's the excitement level for them now that Russell Wilson's back?
Well, I mean, we saw with Sutton, even when he wasn't scoring touchdowns, he was a must-start wide receiver with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's back. We put Sutton at the top of the target chart, and Jerry Jeudy takes a little bit of heat. He's a low-end number 2 wide receiver with top 12 upside if he scores. Dulcich, they've thrown 19% of their passes to tight ends on the full season, even when he wasn't there. Last week we saw he is the tight end they are throwing to now, so I think you can expect 6 to 7 targets on a weekly basis.
Should be fun to see how this goes. It's trusting Russell Wilson, and we just have not gotten the Russell Wilson that we were hoping to see. The Broncos have not gotten the Russell Wilson we were hoping to see. Maybe leaving the country will allow Russell Wilson to play like the Russell Wilson of old, and the Jaguars down Shaq Griffin, one of their top cornerbacks. So we'll see what that matters when it comes to Sutton and Dulcich. Devin Singletary is always somebody that we don't know. Do we start? Do we sit? How much do we trust him when we do start him? So you have him as a start.
Yeah, I think that we will see probably 15 carries in this game. The Packers have tried to take away big plays, and that will be their defensive philosophy. They've been awful against the run. We've seen the Bills be okay with, at least for a half, maybe 3/4 of a game, just running the ball and handing it off and being patient. So I think we'll see that early. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets into the end zone, a low-end number 2 running back.
All right, hopefully he takes advantage of the matchup. But like you said, I think if they're going to allow them to run, Singletary, as we saw against the Chiefs, was very good. And then all of a sudden, the Chiefs said, you know what, well, let's just blitz Josh Allen. And then it just all went to hell. But, good for us when we start Josh Allen in the passing game there for Buffalo. All right, Dave, now let's take a look at your starts. You got Tua Tagovailoa at the quarterback spot, Deontay Foreman, Adam Thielen, DJ Moore, and Tyler Higbee. Tua has been good once. Will he be good twice?
It's the matchup that I'm banking on. And he really wasn't good if you watch his film last week. He should have had like 5. I think it could have been 5. He was really all over the place. But it was his first game back from his concussion issues, so I'm hoping he cleans it up. The Lions have allowed at least 22 fantasy points to everybody except Dak Prescott in his first game back from injury, and Bailey Zappi. On the year, Detroit's allowed 11 total touchdowns to quarterbacks, 259.2 passing yards per game. They play a lot of man coverage. Tua's good against man coverage because his receivers can beat man coverage. I'm counting on that. He is a top 10 quarterback for me this week.
Buying back into DJ Moore. I know last week was very good for DJ Moore. First game without Christian McCaffrey. It's a very good matchup against the Falcons secondary that is extremely beat up.
Jamie, he's got over a 40% target share in his last 2 games. So that includes the game where they were showcasing Christian McCaffrey to the rest of the league. They were still throwing a little bit to him, and then last week they really went crazy with the 10 targets.
Just wait, hold on. Just stay here for a second. He's finally looking good. Heath, did you get 30?
The swings in my rankings aren't quite as wild. I think he was pretty close to 30 last week as well.
The Falcons have allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers this year, 11, including 2 in their past 2 games, and they rank 5th worst in catch rate allowed. This is a great fit, and P.J. Walker made some amazing throws last week. They're not going to be able to pressure him. I think DJ Moore has another good game. Heath, you were right about DJ Moore.
Well, no, that's not true.
You were right about DJ Moore.
We had the conversation on our podcast today about the guys that we went high on
in round 3
that weren't the most obvious guys.
Sure.
So like Pittman for me, Moore for him, Michael Thomas, we gave it to you, and Adam was Cortland Sutton. And just how the ebbs and flows.
It's a roller coaster.
All those guys. In any event,
I got an excuse for mine. Mine got hurt and doesn't want to play for the Saints anymore.
DJ Moore will hopefully have a good week for week number 8. And Adam Thielen, you're buying back into him coming off the bye.
I'm buying back into him because of what his role has been in his last 5 games, at least 7 targets per game. He's had a bunch of games with 15-plus PPR. I think that this matchup against Arizona could be high scoring, and the Cardinals play a specific type of zone defense that takes away the deep play. Well, Thielen's not a deep play kind of guy. He's a check down and a red zone type of guy. He's got a way better catch rate than Justin Jefferson in the red zone this year. It's almost twice as good as JJ's. I think he's a good low-end number 2 fantasy wide receiver in half and full PPR.
Should be a good opportunity for him. He's got a good history also taking on the Cardinals, so we'll see if that continues. 3 times he's played them, 3 times he scored a touchdown.